Good morning, Discworld friends. Hello, how are all of you? I hope you're doing well. Um, what is happening? I hope it's not the flu. I hope it's just a cold. I don't feel like I have the flu, but this was like the quickest onset cold I've had in a really long time. It is fucking me up. What is, why? Who invented colds? Like, can we go back in time and not invent them? Anyway, we're on chapter 3 of The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. This is, as is the case with all of these, for Sam Tarmigan. Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for commissioning all of this and supporting me so much. You're wonderful and amazing. Oh my god. I'll be fine. I may read this very, very slow, though, because I can't breathe through my nose right now. Anyway, all right, so it opens with another quote from Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure. Oh god. Never go into the dark wood, my friend, said Ratty Rupert. There are bad things in there. Oh, no, 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 no. The answer's no. Far below Maurice's paws, the rats were creeping through the undertown of Bad Blintz. Old towns are like that. People build down as well as up. Cellars butt against other cellars, and some of the cellars get forgotten, except by creatures that want to stay out of sight. Quick cultural note here. Growing up on the West Coast, we didn't have basements or cellars almost anywhere. They're all over here. Pretty much every building I've been in here has a basement. And I noticed that even when I was in Europe, just talking about it's just they're everywhere, but we didn't. I mean, I'm not saying that no place has them in California, but most places don't have basements or cellars. It's very interesting. Anyway, in the thick, warm, damp darkness, a voice said, "All right, who's got the matches? Me, Dangerous Beans. Feeds 4. Excuse me. Well done, young rat. And who has the candle? Me, sir. I'm Bite Size. Bite Size, what a great name. There was a lot of. Oh, wait, sorry. Good. Put it down and Peaches will light it. There was a lot of scuffling in the darkness. Not all the rats had got used to the idea of making fire, and they were getting out of the way. There was a scratching noise, and then the match flared. Holding the match with both front paws, Peaches lit the candle stub. The flame swelled for a moment and settled down to a steady glow. Can you really see it? Said Ham and Pork. Yes, sir, said Dangerous Beans. I'm not completely blind. I can tell the difference between light and dark. You know, said Ham and Pork, watching the flame suspiciously, I don't like it at all, even so. Darkness was good enough for our parents. It'll end in trouble. Besides, setting fire to a candle is a waste of perfectly good food. Excuse me. I just dripped this. Oh, it's not closed all the way. That would explain that. Sorry about that, Sam. Oh my god. We have to be able to control the fire, sir, said Dangerous Beans calmly. With the flame, we make a statement to the darkness. We say we are separate. We say we are not just rats. We say we are the clan. I actually really like that. Humph, said Ham and Pork, which was his usual response when he didn't understand what had just been said. Just lately, he'd been rumphing a lot. I've heard the younger rats are saying that the shadows frighten them, said Peaches. Why, said Ham and Pork. They're not frightened of complete darkness, are they? Darkness is a ratty. Being in the dark is what a rat is all about. It's odd, said Peaches, but we didn't know the shadows were there until we had the light. Oh, that's heavy. That's very deep. One of the younger rats timorously raised a paw. And even when the light has gone out, we know the shadows are still around, she said. Dangerous Beans turned toward the young rat. He said. Delicious, said the younger rat. Well, Delicious, said Dangerous Beans in a kindly voice. Being afraid of shadows is all part of us becoming more intelligent, I think. Your mind is working out there that there's a you, and there's also everything outside you. Excuse me. So now you're not just frightened of things that you can see and hear and smell, but also things that you can sort of see inside your head. Learning to face the shadows outside helps us to fight the shadows inside. Oh my god. Peaches and Dangerous Beans, this is some philosophic shit. And you can control all the darkness. It's a big step forward. Well done. Delicious looks slightly proud, but mostly nervous. I don't see the point myself, said Ham and Pork. You never do. We used to do all right on the dump. I was never scared of anything. We were prey to every stray cat and hungry dog, sir, said Dangerous Beans. Oh, well, if we're going to talk about cats, growled Ham and Pork. I think we can trust Maurice, sir, said Dangerous Beans. Perhaps not when it comes to money, I admit, but he is very good at not eating people who talk, you know. He checks every time. You can trust a cat to be a cat, said Ham and Pork, talking or not. Yes, sir, But we are different, and so is he. I believe he is a decent cat at heart. Uh-huh. That remains to be seen, said Peaches. But now that we are here, let's get organized. Hammond Pork growled. Who are you to say, let's get organized? He asked sharply. Are you the leader, young female, who refuses to RLLK Earl with me? Oh. Is that what I think it means? No, I am the leader. It's my job to say, let's get organized. Yes, sir, said Peaches, crouching low. How would you like us to be organized, sir? Hammond Pork stared at her. He looked at the waiting rats with their packs and bundles, and then around at the ancient cellar, and then back to the still crouching Peaches. Just get organized, he muttered. Don't bother me with the details. I am the leader. Oh, so he's a good leader then. Just, shitting one. And he stalked off into the shadows. When he'd gone, Peaches and Dangerous Beans looked around the cellar, which was filled with trembling shadows created by the candlelight. Excuse me. A trickle of water ran down one crusted wall. Here and there, stones had fallen out, leaving inviting holes. Earth covered the floor, and there were human footprints in it. An ideal base, said Dangerous Beans. It's most secret and safe. A perfect place for rats. Right, said a voice, and you know what's worrying me about that? Excuse me. The rat called Dark Tan stepped out into the candle. I love it. You can just see where I spilled tea on my shirt. I'm an adult. The rat called Dark Tan stepped out into the candlelight and hitched up one of his belts of tools. A lot of the watching rats suddenly paid attention. People listened to Hammond Pork because he was the leader, but they listened to Dark Tan because he was often telling you things that you really, really needed to know if you wanted to go on living. He was big and lean and tough, and spent most of his time taking traps apart to see how they worked. Oh my god, that's kind of cool. What is worrying you, Dark Tan? Asked Dangerous Beans. There aren't any rats here, except us. Rat tunnels, yes, but we've seen no rats. No rats at all. A town like this should be full of them. Agreed. This is a this is a bad sign. Oh, they're probably scared of us, said Peaches. Dark Tan tapped the side of his scarred muzzle. Maybe, he said. But things don't smell right. Thinking is a great invention, but we were given noses, and it pays to listen to them. Be extra careful. He turned to the assembled rats and raised his voice. Okay, troops, you know the drill, he shouted. Plague rats in front of me, in your platoons, now. It didn't take long for the rats to form 3 groups. With plenty of practice. Very nice, said Dark Tan, as the last few shuffled into position. Right, this is tricky territory, people, so we're going to be careful. Dark Tan was unusual among rats because he wore things. When the rats had discovered books, and the whole idea of books was still a difficult one for most of the older rats, they found, in the bookshop they invaded every night, the book. Capitalized B, the book. So you gotta say it with a little reverence, right? Excuse me. Up until they were changed, books had only been useful for eating the glue off the bindings and making nests out of the pages. They'd never looked at one before. This book was amazing. Even before Peaches and Donut and her had learned to read human words, they'd been amazed by the pictures. Excuse me. There were animals in there wearing clothes. There was a rabbit who walked on its hind legs and wore a blue suit. Is this the Mr. Bunsey, the quotes that we're getting at the beginning of the chapter? There was a rat in a hat, and he wore a sword and a big red vest, complete with a watch on a chain. Even the snake had a collar and tie. And all of them talked, and none of them made any of the others, and this was the unbelievable part, they all talked to humans, who treated them like, well, smaller humans. There were no traps, no poisons. Admittedly, according to Peaches, who was painstakingly working her way through the book and sometimes read out parts, Ollie the snake was a bit of a rascal, but nothing truly bad happened. Even when the rabbit got lost in the dark wood, he just had a bit of a scare. Yes, Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure was the cause of much discussion among the changelings. Oh, the changelings, I like that name for them. What was it for? Was it, as Dangerous Beans believed, a vision of some bright future? Had it been made by humans? The shop had been for humans, true, but surely even humans wouldn't make a book about Ratty Rupert the Rat, who wore a hat and poisoned rats under the floorboards at the same time. Would they? How mad would anything have to be to think like that? Well, welcome to humans. Some of the younger rats had suggested that perhaps clothes were more important than everyone thought. They tried wearing vests, but it had been very difficult to bite out the pattern. They couldn't make the buttons work, and frankly, the things got caught on every splinter and were very hard to run in. Hats just fell on. Dark Tan just thought that humans were mad as well as bad, but the pictures in the book had given him an idea. What he wore was not so much a vest as a network of wide belts, easy to wriggle into and out of. On them he'd sewn pockets, and that had been a good idea, like giving yourself extra hands, to hold all the things he needed, like metal rods and bits of wire. Some of the rest of the squad had taken up the idea too. You never knew what you were going to need next on the trap disposal squad. It was a tough, ratty life. Oh my god, the trap disposal squad! It's so cute. Excuse me. The rods and wires jangled as Dark Tan walked up and down in front of his teams. He stopped in front of one large group of younger rats. All right, number 3 platoon. You're on whittling duty, he said. Go and have a good drink. Ooh, we're always on whittling, a rat complained. Dark Tan pounced on him and faced him nose to nose until he backed away. That's 'cause you're good at it, my lad. Your mother raised you to be a whittler, so off you go and do what comes naturally. Nothing puts humans off like seeing that rats have been there before, if you catch my meaning. And if you get the opportunity, do some gnawing as well. And run around under the floorboards and squeak. And remember, no one is to move in until they get the all clear from the trap squad. To the water, now, on the double. Hup, hup. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The platoon headed off at speed. Here's the thing, I'm worried. That high payment for rats, oh god. Dark Tan turned to number 2 platoon. They were some of the older rats, scarred and bitten and ragged. Some of them with stubs of tails or no tails at all. Some of them missing a paw or an ear or an eye. In fact, although there were about 20 of them, they had among them only enough bits to make up about 17 complete rats. Oh my god! But because they were old, they were cunning, since a rat who isn't cunning and shifty and suspicious doesn't become an old rat. They'd all been grown up when the change came. They were more set in their old ways. Ham and Pork always said he liked them that way. They still had a lot of basic rattiness, the kind of raw cunning that would get you out of the traps that overexcited intelligence got you into. They thought with their noses, and he didn't tell them where to whittle. All right, people, you know the drill, said Dark Tan. I want to see lots of cheeky stuff. Stealing the food out of cats' bowls, pies from under the cook's noses, false teeth from out of old men's mouths, said a small rat, who seemed to be dancing on the spot while he stood there. His feet moved all the time, tippity-tapping on the cellar floor. He wore a hat, too, a battered, homemade thing out of straw. He was the only rat who could make a hat work by wedging his ears through it. He said to get ahead, you had to get a hat. That was a fluke, Sardines. Sardine! Oh my god, these rats have the best fucking names. Sardines, I love it. I bet you can't do it again, said Dark Tan. And don't keep on telling the kids how you went for a swim in someone's bathtub. Yeah, I know you did, but I don't want to lose anyone who can't scramble out of a slippery tub. Anyway, if I don't hear ladies screaming and running out of their kitchens within 10 minutes, I'll know you're not the rats I think you are. Well, why are you all standing around? Get on with it! And Sardines? Yes, boss? Easy on the tap dancing this time, all right? I just got these dancing feet, boss. And do you have to keep wearing that stupid hat? Said Dark Tan, grinning. Yes, boss. Excuse me. Sardine was one of the older rats, but most of the time he wouldn't know it. He danced and joked and never got into fights. He'd lived in a theater and once eaten a whole box of grease paint. It seemed to have gotten into his blood. I love Sardines already. And no going on ahead of the trap squad, said Dark Tan. Sardines grinned in turn. Aw, boss, can't I have any fun? He danced after the rest of them toward the holes in the walls. Dark Tan moved on to number 1 platoon. It was the smallest. You had to be a certain kind of rat to last a long time in the trap disposal squad. You had to be slow and patient and thorough. You had to have a good memory. You had to be careful. You could join the squad if you were fast and slapdash and hasty. You just didn't last very long. He looked them up and down and smiled. He was proud of these rats. Okay, people, you know it all by now, he said. You don't need a long lecture from me. Just remember that this is a new town, so we don't know what we're going to find. There's bound to be plenty of new types of traps. But we learn fast, don't we? Poisons, too. They might be using stuff we've never run across before. So be careful. Never rush, never run. We don't want to be like the first mouse, eh? No, Dark Tan, the rats chorused dutifully. I said, what mouse don't we want to be like? Dark Tan demanded. We don't want to be like the first mouse, shouted the rats. Excuse me. Right. What mouse do we want to be like? The second mouse, Dark Tan, said the rats, like people who had had this lesson dinned into them many times. Right. And why do we want to be like the second mouse? Because the second mouse gets the cheese, Dark Tan. Good, said Dark Tan. In Brian will take squad 2. Best before? Best before. Oh my god. I love these names. You're promoted. You take Squad 3, and I hope you're as good as old Farmhouse was right up until the time she forgot how to disengage the trip catch on a snippet and poison Rat Snapper number 5. Overconfidence is our enemy. So if you see anything suspicious, any little trays you don't recognize, anything with wires and springs and stuff, you mark it and send a runner to me. Yes? A young rat was holding up her hand. Yes, what's your name, miss? Er, Nourishing, sir, said the rat. Can I ask a question, sir? Are you new in this platoon, Nourishing? Said Darktan. Yes, sir. Transferred out of the Light Whittlers, sir. And they thought you would be good at trap disposal, did they? Nourishing looked uneasy, but there was no going back now. Not really, sir. They said I couldn't be any worse than I am at whittling, sir. There was general laughter from the ranks. How could a rat not be good at that? Asked Darktan. It's just so embarrassing, sir, said Nourishing. Oh, well, was she changed pretty young, I'm guessing. Excuse me. Darktan sighed to himself. All this new thinking was producing some strange things. He personally approved of the idea of the right place, but some of the ideas the kids were coming up with were odd. All right, he said. What was your question, Nourishing? You said the second mouse gets the cheese, sir. That's right. That is the squad motto, Nourishing. Remember it. It is your friend. Yes, sir. I will, sir. But doesn't the first mouse get something, sir? Well, technically, yes. Darktan stared at the young rat. He was slightly impressed that she stared back instead of cringing. I can see you're going to be a valuable addition to the squad, Nourishing, he said. He raised his voice. Squad, what does the first mouse get? The roar of voices made dust fall down from the ceiling. The trap. And don't you forget it, said Darktan. Take him out, special offer. Special offer? I'll be with you in a minute. A younger rat stepped forward and faced the squads. Let's go, rats. Hut, hut, hut. The trap squad trotted away. Darktan walked over to Dangerous Beans and Peaches. That's got us started, he said. If we can't get the humans looking for a good rat catcher by tomorrow, we don't know our business. We need to stay longer than that, said Peaches. Excuse me, some of the ladies are going to have their babies. I said, we don't know what's safe here yet, said Darktan. Do you want to be the one to tell Big Savings? Asked Peaches sweetly. Big Savings, another great name, was the old head female, widely agreed to have a bite like a pickaxe and muscles like rock. She had a short temper with males. Even ham and pork kept out of her way when she was in a bad mood. Nature has to take its course, obviously, said Darktan quickly. But we haven't explored. There must be other rats here. The keys all keep out of the way of us, said Peaches. What does that word mean? That was true, Darktan had to agree. Ordinary rats did keep out of the way of the changelings. Oh, that's what that word means. Answered from context clues. Oh, there was some trouble. There was some trouble sometimes, but the changelings were big and healthy and could think their way through a fight. Excuse me. Dangerous Beans was unhappy about this. But as Ham and Pork said, it was either us or them, and when you got right down to it, it was a rat-eat-rat world. I'm going to go and join my squad, said Darktan, still unnerved at the thought of confronting Big Savings. He moved closer. What's up with Ham and Pork? He's thinking about things, said Peaches. Thinking, said Darktan, blankly. Oh, right. Well, I've got traps to see to. Smell you later. I love that, because smell you later actually means something different to them. What is the matter with Ham and Pork? Asked Dangerous Beans when he and Peaches were alone again. He's getting old, said Peaches. He needs to rest a lot. I think he's worried that Darktan and one of the others is going to challenge him. Will they, do you think? Darktan's more wrapped up in breaking traps and testing poisons. There's more interesting things to do now than bite one another. Or do Rolk, from what I hear, said Dangerous Beans. Peaches looked on demurely. If rats could blush, she would have done so. It was amazing how pink eyes that could hardly see you could look straight through you at the same time. The ladies are a lot more choosy, she said. They want to find fathers who can think. That is very interesting. Good, said Dangerous Beans. We must be careful. We don't need to breed like rats. We don't have to rely on numbers. We are the changelings. Peaches watched him anxiously. When Dangerous Beans was thinking, he seemed to be staring into a world only he could see. What is it this time? She asked. I've been thinking that we shouldn't kill other rats. No rat should kill another rat. Even kikis? She asked. They are rats too. Peaches shrugged. Well, we've tried talking to them, and that didn't work. Anyway, they mostly stay away these days. Excuse me. Dangerous Beans was still staring at the unseen world. Even so, he said quietly, I should like you to write it down. Peaches sighed, but went off anyway to one of the packs the rats had carried in and pulled out her bag. It was no more than a roll of cloth with a handle made from a scrap of string, but it was big enough to hold a few matches, some pieces of pencil lead, a tiny sliver of a broken knife blade for sharpening the leads, and a grubby piece of paper. All the important things. She was also the official carrier of Mr. Bunsey. A carrier wasn't quite correct. Dragger would be more accurate. But Dangerous Beans always liked to know where it was and seemed to think better when it was around. And he gave him some comfort, and that was good enough for Peaches. Oh my God. She smoothed out the paper on an ancient brick, picked up a piece of lead, and looked down the list. The first thought had been, in the clan is strength. This had been a quite hard one to translate, but she'd made an effort. Most rats couldn't read human. It was just too hard to make the lines and squiggles turn into any sense. So Peaches had worked very hard on making a language the rats could read. She tried to draw a big rat made up of little rats. Oh my God, there's actually a little drawing. That's so cool. The writing had led to trouble with Ham and Pork. New ideas needed a running jump to get into the old rat's head. Dangerous Beans had explained in his strange, calm voice that writing things down would mean that a rat's knowledge would go on existing even when the rat had died. He said that all the rats could learn the knowledge of Ham and Pork. Ham and Pork said, not likely. It had taken him years to learn some of the tricks he'd learned. Why should he give it all away? That'd mean any young rat would know as much as him. Oh, poor you. Dangerous Beans had said, we cooperate or we die. And the drawing is two little rats, and then there's like a mouth, sort of. That had become the next thought. Cooperate had been difficult. Even Kiki's would sometimes lead a blind or a wounded comrade by using a stick to guide them, and that was certainly cooperation. The thick line where she pressed heavily had to mean no. The trap sign could mean die or bad or avoid. Peaches had written down a great many thoughts. The last thought in the paper was not to whittle where you eat. This one was quite simple. There's a little rat eating, and then a pile of whittles. And then the no mark. She grasped a piece of lead in both paws and carefully drew, no rat shall kill another rat. The logic of this language is actually incredibly fascinating. I love it. She sat back. Yes, not bad. Trap was a good sign for death. And she'd added the dead rat to make it all the more serious. But supposing you have to, she said, still staring at the drawings. Then you have to, said Dangerous Beans. But you shouldn't. Peaches shook her head sadly. She supported Dangerous Beans because there was, well, something about him. He wasn't big or fast, and he was almost blind and quite weak, and sometimes he forgot to eat because he came up with thoughts that nobody, at least nobody who was a rat, had thought before. Most of them had annoyed Ham and Pork to no end, like the time when Dangerous Beans had said, what is a rat? And Ham and Pork replied, teeth, claws, tail, run, hide, eat. That's what a rat is. But Dangerous Beans had said, but now we can also say, what is a rat? And that means we're more than that. We're rats, Ham and Pork had argued. We run around and squeak and steal and make more rats. That's what we're made for. Who by? Dangerous Beans had asked. And that had led into another argument about the big rat deep under the ground theory. Even Ham and Pork followed Dangerous Beans, and so did rats like Dark Tan and Donut enter. They listened when he talked. Peaches listened when they talked. We were given noses, Dark Tan had told the platoons. Who had given them noses? The thought of Dangerous Beans worked their way into the other people's heads without their noticing. He came up with new ways of thinking. He came up with new words. He came up with ways of understanding the things that were happening to them. Big rats, rats with scars, listened to the little rat because the change had led them into dark territory, and he seemed to be the only one with an idea of where they were going. Excuse me. She left him sitting by the candle and went and looked for Ham and Pork. He was sitting by a wall. Like most of the old rats, he always stuck to walls and kept away from open spaces and too much light. He was shaking. Are you all right? She said. The shaking stopped. Fine, nothing wrong with me, snapped Ham and Pork. Just a few twinges, nothing permanent. Only I noticed you didn't go out with any of the squad, said Peaches. There's nothing wrong with me, shouted the old rat. We've got some potatoes in the baggage. I don't want any food. There is nothing wrong with me. What I was going to say is literally the next line, which meant that there was, right? Because it really does. I mean, is he getting defensive because he's dying? I feel like he's pretty old, right? It was the reason he didn't want to share all the things he knew. What he knew was all that he had left. Peaches knew what rats traditionally did to leaders who were too old. She'd watched Hammondpork's face when Darktan, younger, stronger Darktan, had been talking to his squads and knew that Hammondpork was thinking about it too. Oh, he was fine when people were watching him, but lately he'd been resting more and skulking in corners. Old rats were driven out, to lurk around by themselves and go rotten and funny in the head. Soon, there would be another leader. Peaches wished she could make him understand one of the thoughts of dangerous beings, but the old rat didn't much like talking to females. He'd grown up thinking females weren't for him. The thought was, so there's three rats, the big ones, and then three small rats under a no sign. It meant, oh, we are the changelings. We are not like other rats. What is this book turning into? I'm also fascinated by this because I just expected the whole book to stick with Maurice, and this is an entire chapter. He's not even in it. He's mentioned, but he's not in it at all. Oh, and it was really good. I love all the world building for this. All right, thank you, Sam Tarbian. You're wonderful and fantastic. I hope I feel better next week and don't sound so congested when I read. Thank you for being patient with me. You're the best. See y'all.